I'm excited to bring on somebody that I love talking to. I feel like every time I talk to Gabriel, I walk away with different ideas, different ways of thinking about the world, and they're always very positive. I'm excited to welcome Gabriel from Graph Paper Capital to chat more about the work that they're doing there, and just as James mentioned, the kind of FVM cohort that they're bringing through as well. So Gabriel, welcome to the stage. Excited to have you.
Awesome. Good to see you, Jacob. How you
doing?
Yeah.
I think life's great. Yeah. Okay.
Awesome. Cool. Awesome. Well, always love being here. Always love speaking to the amazing teams that are building and hacking at the HackFS events. So I've got 15 minutes to blow your faces off. Can't believe I just said that out loud, actually. So I want to try to give you as much value as possible over the next 15 minutes. Super excited to be here. Today's session title is how to take your hackathon project and turn it into a sustainable startup. So a little bit about me. I'm a previous 3-time founder, 2-time EIR. I previously was the founder and managing director of a Web3 accelerator called Tachyon. Over the last 4.5 years, I've backed over 90 founders in crypto and Web3. They've collectively raised about 150 million, almost $1 billion in total valuations. And having been a 3-time founder myself, I've made a lot of mistakes along the way. I've built venture scale businesses. I've built N-of-1 businesses. So I've seen quite a bit. Graph Paper Capital we're an early stage Web3 accelerator. We're a network ecosystem, and we really like to back the most ambitious founders who are defining the future of Web3, really helping to accelerate pre-seed and seed stage founders within the space with giving them access to capital, access, and insights. And we've been working with the Protocol Ops team for a long time. And so I think one of the things that I kind of want to, help set the context around, I've had to make the transition from like an early project into a venture scale company lots of times, seeing it, from myself. But I've also backed a number of really amazing companies and founders that got their start at a hackathon, just like many of you who are here today. So I've seen firsthand tons of amazing teams that have had to struggle through making that transition. And I've seen founders really successfully make that transition. Some of them I think are actually sponsors of HackFS, and it's really cool seeing that. And so over the years, I've been able to spot the trends in what successful founders do as they make this transition from a project, maybe something that you've been hacking on over the span of a weekend or a couple of weeks. And I want to share with all of you some of the patterns I've seen. And I'm a big believer that success leaves clues. So the big transition that you're going to have to make as you go from a hackathon project to whether or not this can be a sustainable startup is going from building what you think is cool to validating with real users that there is real demand there. Do other people want what you're building? The difference between a project and a company is a customer. And as a founder, you're going to have to get ruthless with finding what's called product market fit and the value that you're delivering to users and being able to prove it ASAP. Everything you do when you make that transition from your product to raising capital to hiring, it is all in service of your users and customers. I told you guys about I'm a 3-time founder of the three codes that I previously founded, but I didn't tell you about the 6 to 7, 8, 9, 10 projects in between that were either lifestyle businesses or that just could never get escape velocity. I just couldn't find product market fit. So I've gone through this, a number of times myself. So my advice for today's session is not theoretical. I've lived this. And so there's a series of questions that I think you want to start to ask yourselves as you're coming out of HackFS to start to answer that will help assess if this is the thing that you should spend the next 5 to 7 years of your life building. So let's jump right into it. Here are basically the 5 key areas that you should be analyzing as a founder or as a group, as a group, to analyze and determine if this is startup worthy or not. So I'm going to unpack these one by one. Time check. All right, doing pretty good. So first, team. A perfect product in a perfect market can still fail with an imperfect team. And so like a lot of products come together in hackathons, for the hack. But a great team, I've seen time and time again that a great team can overcome all the fits and starts to make it work. So when you come out of hackathon, you've got some ideas, you've got what might be an early product, or you have a feature or something like that. The version that you have today might not end up being the version that ends up being the one that has real product market fit. And so you're going to go through a lot of uncertainty. There's this valley of death that every founder has to traverse. And all those fits and starts and challenges. The question is does the founding team, the group of you that are building and hacking together, do you have all the critical skills that your business is going to need? And if not, how do you go about getting them? So some of the questions you want to start to think about and asking yourselves as you're coming out of HackFS is, one, like, do you have a history of shipping together, or did the team just meet up at the hackathon? There's nothing wrong with meeting up at the hackathon, but before you decide to do something like take on a startup together, maybe you want to get a couple of cycles together. Maybe do a couple of hackathons together before you decide whether or not you're ready to make that leap. The great thing about hackathons is that you're forced to ship fast, and you're put in these really high pressure situations. So you can really vet potential co-founders, in terms of being able to keep your cool under stress and pressure. You might want to ask yourselves, does everyone actually want to continue on with this thing that you built, and potentially get venture funding or go through an accelerator? Do you, as a team, have complementary skills? Do you balance each other out? Do you have a unique insight into the market or or a set of users in an industry? And if your team is lacking in any key areas like domain expertise or maybe business operations or fundraising or something like that, what's your plan to fill that gap? Can you fill it with mentors? Can you fill it with, getting access to some of the amazing resources that James was just talking about, or in an accelerator? And I'll talk about paper capital at the end of this. But these are some things you want to ask yourselves as you're thinking about, the team dynamic within your hack project. And the reason why I wanted to spend a little bit of extra time on this one is that the single biggest risk that we see at these early stages are founder disputes and founder breakups. The early days are extremely high risk and high stress. And early founding teams are subject to the same interpersonal problems, and require effective, governance. So can your relationship survive that tumult? And I think that's the thing that you really want to ask yourselves as you're thinking about, do we want to continue on with this coming out of the hackathon? One question I do get often is, solo hackers versus forming a team. Do I need a co-founder, etc. Single founders may not cover all the critical skills, and really subjects you to being able to wear a lot of different hats. And so, the question is that you want to ask yourself is, do you really think that you can do it alone? If not, what's your plan to fill some of those skill gaps? And I think that's where having access to networks, having access to mentors, is a really valuable thing. In terms of the team, most founders that we back are highly technical. So I'm going to assume that anybody who's here at the hackathon, HackFS, you can probably build a product. But technical skills alone are not sufficient. The founders that I have seen succeed time and time again, at this stage, I've raised millions of dollars for some of my companies. I've done the bootstrap thing, gotten to 7-8 figures, $10 million run rate business, bootstrap. The thing that I've seen time and time again is, in addition to having the strong technical skills, do you have strong founder market fit? In other words, do you understand the industry, the domain, the vertical that you are building in? Even if it's kind of like a new frontier Web3 thing, what's the Web 2 equivalent that you're disrupting, and do you understand the pain points of that particular market? So do you have strong founder market fit? 2, startups are really hard. You are going to have to hustle like crazy. And depending on the type of founder you are, hustling means different things. Can you sell? Can you build your product? Whatever it is, you've got to have that drive. You got to have that hustle. And then finally, the best founders are really good storytellers. Can you inspire others to come along on this journey with you? You are a high risk proposition literally to everybody you speak with in those early days. And so in order to overcome that, you're going to need an edge. Let's assume that you can build the thing that you're building, that you're hacking on here over this week during HackFS. After that, what's your edge? And you're going to need the one, if not all 3 of these. Okay, so that's the team dynamic. Let's talk about market. You are all building a product that exists in a market with either direct or indirect competitors. And so as you start to think about transitioning from a project to whether this is an actual sustainable startup and business, you want to better understand your market and the users in that market. What are their key pain points? What assumptions are you making about the users in that market? And how can you quickly validate some of those assumptions? How big is the market? How fast is it growing? That's important to understanding whether this is going to be a project that you tinker with, a nice lifestyle business, and I've built a number of those. There's nothing wrong with that. Or is the market opportunity large enough that you want to think seriously about raising money for your idea and going through like an accelerator? So I think there are two approaches to product market fit in Web3 when it comes to market sizing, and I've seen both work. So the first is, can you capture a large percentage of a small but a really fast, exponentially growing market? So a lot of the times this will be like a Web3 native market, but it's growing by 2, 3, 4, 5, 600% compounding annual growth. And so, if you capture a large percentage or share of a small but fast growing market, then you're just going to ride that growth curve of that market and be a market leader. And then you can start to peel off into ancillary markets as you raise. And we cover a lot of that during our accelerator. But the second approach is building what I might call a Web 2.5 company and using the Web3 stack as a key differentiator across one of the 4 critical attack vectors, and being able to basically outcompete Web 2 companies using a better, more efficient stack. So either way, you're going to need to build in a very large and growing market. And the way that you get, I literally was mentoring a founder earlier today. The difference between building a vitamin versus an aspirin. The analogy basically is, an aspirin relieves pain. Like, I'm in pain, I need to alleviate that pain now. A multivitamin is like a nice to have. It's like, I know I should take vitamins. I know I should take care of my health, but I'll get to it. When you're trying to figure out, is this a hackathon project or is this a potentially sustainable high growth startup, you need to find that high value pain point and be that aspirin in the market by offering a differentiated solution. And you are going to need to ruthlessly assess if the market you're going after is large enough, or that you're making a bet that it will be extremely large. It'll be an extremely large market and that you can own it. And that's the Web 2.5 versus Web 3 native approach. Okay. I want to speed along here. I think I'm running a little long. I'm going to assume most of you are technical, but I think the one thing that's important here, the world is full of smart, motivated people who just can't execute and build. And so depending on your audience, your objective, and the level of complexity of your idea, or your MVP, your minimum viable product, your product will range from some low fidelity build, maybe a no code solution or something like that, to test some of your key assumptions, to like dynamic UX designs on Figma or something like that, all the way up to full blown high fidelity products that require a lot more building and coding. In hackathons, you can and should write code. That's exactly what you should be doing if you're technical. But once you start transitioning from project to startup, and especially a startup that has raised money, you need to have a strong understanding of the users in your market before you start writing a lot of code. You might be incurring a lot of technical debt. So like even DeFi solutions that require like security audits, they can be de-risked or validated with users before taking on the heavy costs and complexity and time commitment of like an audit, for example. So you really want to assess your riskiest assumptions in your technical roadmap and your product and the market, and then validate those with users, and then show that you can prioritize your product roadmap as you increase the believability of your product builds with real users in the market. So every version of your product should be getting you closer to higher and higher fidelity builds with real users. Okay, traction, community building. Startups do not fail because of a lack of technology. I promise you. They fail because of a lack of customers and users. And so you need to understand your users intimately. And in the early days, you're really looking for the highest value pain point, and you're trying to see if you can solve that pain point and build real demand. So you're going to start with your hackathon community. That's an obvious place for you to start. That's usually where most hackathon projects get their first couple of users or customers. And maybe some of you are going to win certain prizes, and that would be great. But at some point, you've got to venture out of that community and this community and venture out into the market and speak with people who don't know you and don't know what you're building, and see if there's real signal there. And the best founders in Web3 that I've seen are really good about building in public and harnessing community. The great thing about building a community and building in public is that even if your project pivots and you end up changing, you have this asset, this amazing asset that you can bring along with you that can pivot along with wherever you go. The other big mistake that I see founders make, especially coming out of hackathons, especially those who end up winning the prizes, is they mistake these vanity metrics for real demand. Things like Discord followers and Twitter followers, or a bunch of judges told me that this is great. That's good, but that's not convincing of real user demand. So as you're making this transition and thinking about, do I have a real startup here in my hands? You need a clear set of early adopters that are ready to use your product, not some of these vanity metrics, and or you want to be aligned with very clear industry trends. You are going where the puck you're skating towards where the puck is going. So you don't need a ton of growth in the early days, especially coming out of a hackathon. But what you want is and need is real signal of user demand. So can you show that there are real users that love what you're building or chomping at the bit to actually use your product, your MVP? And it doesn't matter about raising money or accelerators or anything like that. You want to prove this for yourself, so you don't end up spending unnecessary time chasing a thing that doesn't have real demand. Okay, and then we get to funding. I'm going to blow through this a little bit. I think as a Web3 founder, you have a lot of funding options to you that even Web2 companies don't have. And so you want to start thinking about, does this project that I'm working on or building on, does it fit the venture profile? Is it in a large and growing market? Can it be $1 billion type company? And the great thing about building Web3 is you have a lot of sources of capital that you can get access to along the way while you hit your next set of milestones. And so I think here we go. Yeah. So you've got, this is just kind of like a mind map of traditional venture versus Web3 venture. You all have access to wonderful ecosystem funds, non-dilutive grants, hackathons like this, maybe strategic angels, you've got seed, you've got accelerators, traditional VC, investment DAOs. You can raise by exiting to your community. So you've got a lot of funding options available to you, which gives you optionality and an unfair competitive advantage as you're thinking about your project. So those are the 5 key areas that you really want to hone in on and think about as you start to think, is this a project that I want to maybe take to the next level with the next set of investment or growth with like an accelerator. So I'll show just a little bit about Graph Paper Capital for those of you that are interested in something like an accelerator. We're extremely bullish on FVM. I've been in partnership with Filecoin Protocol Labs for years now. I think FVM is probably one of the most exciting spaces to be building and hacking in right now. So this is a little bit about Graph Paper Capital. I think the thing that we really seek to do is give our founders, we specialize in pre-seed and seed stage founders. I think that's where we're really good. Just myself having been a 3-time founder, I guess 4-time now, 2-time EIR. And then our network and our ecosystem is tremendous with early stage founders. And so we give you seed capital. We try to build infrastructure around your startup. I don't want our founders having to reinvent the wheel, especially if you're a first-time founder. So we give you, during the course of 12 weeks, battle-tested tools, resources, playbooks, frameworks, the things that we've used to successfully build companies as you look for product market fit within Web3. And then this amazing network of fellow founders and builders. The great thing about having a strong network is not only do you have sources of capital that could be potential angels or seed investors, but typically founders who are also early stage investors are some of the best early beta users. They give you the absolute best feedback. And our network is made up of a lot of founders that we've previously backed. I think it's one of our unfair competitive advantages as an accelerator and ecosystem. Our emphasis is heavy on that 0 to 1 stage, finding product market fit. How do you take the Web2 playbook and layer in the unfair competitive advantages that you have of finding product market fit within Web3? And then the other thing is fundraising preparation. Teaching you as a founder, how do you actually go about launching and running a successful fundraising process? The fundraising market right now is extremely difficult, especially if you're in Web3 and crypto. And I see a lot of founders that just don't actually know how to run a fundraising process. This is different than a demo day, by the way, which we do have as well. But yeah, again, for those of you that are building the FVM ecosystem, I think this is probably one of the most exciting ecosystems to be building in right now. We're certainly excited about it at GPC. I think for 2 reasons. One, FVM is anchored to real storage demand, real demand and sticky revenue. So before I was telling you about the size of the market, are you competing in a large and growing market? The TAM, or the total addressable market of something like FVM, is anchored to real world use cases. And so I think not only do you have, as this open data economy starts to expand within the FVM landscape, not only do you have this massive market that will be growing and continue to grow, but it's anchored to real demand. So it's not like you're building a startup in, in an ecosystem where you're trying to, make it more efficient to flip monkey JPEGs, for example. And no disrespect to anybody flipping monkey JPEGs, by the way, it's a lot of fun. But you want to be building in an ecosystem where there's real world demand. And I think the other thing is that I think we're going to see a lot of first mover advantages in FVM, and that will give your startup a defensible moat and allow you to capture a market and be a market leader in a large and growing ecosystem. So we're very excited about it. I think Graph Paper Capital is probably I'm highly biased when I say this, but we are probably the smartest, highest leverage money on your cap table at the pre-seed and seed stage if you're a Web3 crypto founder and builder. So we'd love to see any and all of you apply to the Spring 23 cohort. You can grab a snapshot of this QR code to head to our website, which is graphpapercapital.xyz if you're interested in applying. And this is just a little bit about our network. I think our network of founder investors is probably one of the most unfair competitive advantages that we have. At any startup founder's journey, you need access and you need insight. And so our 12-week program is really geared towards creating rigor and surface areas to give you exactly that. We've designed an accelerator to surface your biggest challenges as a founder, as a company. And then we design these high fidelity interactions and touch points with people within our networking ecosystem to help unlock that access or that insight that you need. So we'll be working closely with 10 to 15 startups for our spring cohort. It will run June through September. We will have a remote demo day. We will have an IRL investor day where we invite vetted investors from our network who we know, who we've done deals with previously, all in a position to really try to help our founders accelerate extremely fast and then get them ready for that next stage of investment and growth. Okay, I think that's everything. Really appreciate being here. Love the ETH Global community and ecosystem. Love being here and being able to speak to amazing hackers and builders. And you can come find us at graphpapercapital.xyz if you have any questions. Jacob, I might have gone a little over and I apologize, sir.
That's all right. That's all right. I'll forgive you. I forgive you. I mean, I took a lot from that. You covered a lot of topics. Like, I think the main thing, you covered so much valuable stuff, but the main thing I covered was the difference between a project and a company as a customer. And I think one of the cool things is this is a 3-week hackathon too, right? So there's plenty of time to find those first customers even during the hackathon and get feedback as you're building early stage. And then, yeah, as a next step, go down the accelerator pipeline and join Graph Paper Capital's accelerator. And there's just so much support out there. So I think, very excited to have you here, to have you chatting, and for sharing the work that you're doing.
Thanks. Great seeing you. Great seeing you again.
You too.
Look, everybody, to hacking. Have fun. Would love to see some amazing projects apply.
Amazing. Thank you, Gabriel. Cheers.
Yep.